Hi guys, my name's Adele Onyango and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. So I hope you had a really good week. I had a very challenging, to say the least, week, and I'm just trying to process the past week, and once I've done that, I can put it into an episode. But I'm recording this at about 8 a.m. on the 31st of March. So today marks 7 years since my mom passed away. And it's never easy this day. Also because I can never prepare for it. I never know how my emotions are going to go. So some years I'm very chill and relaxed and calm. Some years I'm just a ball of emotions. I mean, last night I was just on edge. So today I'm just going to try and do things that calm me down. I'm going to go for a long drive a little later, and hopefully it's not going to be too much of a heavy day emotionally, but I can never predict. So in response to last episode, I asked you to send through your stories on how you're battling grief via WhatsApp, voice, or audio notes. And I just want to say a big thank you to each and everyone who sent their stories. I got stories from Rwanda, from Uganda, from different continents, and from right here in Kenya. And I know it's not easy to open up about these stories because it takes you to a very dark place, but it's also to some extent and for some people very therapeutic. What I love about this episode that you're going to listen to is these are the raw, real, everyday battles with grief. It's not the strong faces that we put on, it's our everyday, even when the everydays fall on the anniversaries.
I lost my parents 16 years ago now, both of them the same year. And I'm telling you, there's nothing old about that loss. I cry, I curse, I question, I just get emotional. Like I lost them yesterday. And sometimes I don't even know why I should push on with life. I don't know why I should live. There are those moments where I just feel like, okay, what am I even doing? Who is there to applaud me? Who is there to tell me you can do this? Who is there to to tell me you don't have to do that? Who is there to tell me I love your strength? Who is there to tell you you can always pick up your pieces? And I just feel like that has been denied to me by death. Not a while ago, I lost my baby sister, 2015, and now this completely broke me. And I've always wished that I am not the first one to lose to lose them. Like, I have two sisters, my big sister and my baby sister. I just thought maybe they'll lose me first so that I don't get to experience that pain again. But I lost her, and now I have three people that when I sit down, I'm usually like, wow. You're like, okay, who is next?
I find that story to be very powerful because even in the last episode, I told you what I'm currently struggling with is that anxiety of wondering who's next and really understanding that the fact is I'm going to have to deal with the death of a loved one. And that completely terrifies me because I wouldn't want to go through this again, but the probabilities of that happening are very high just because, life. There were more stories that came through of how there are very specific moments where you miss your loved one even more.
It will be 4 years in this year in December, and I still just have regular moments of silence when I remember her, and then I miss her the most if, let's say, I have achieved something. Like right now, I'm just finishing school, so maybe I'm trying to do an assignment and it wasn't making sense, and it makes sense, and then I'm like, I should call my mom, and I remember I can't call my mom. Or again, I miss her when I see something so funny and I want someone to tell because they would relate to it, and that was my mom for me. When I got dumped, I missed my mom so much because I wanted someone to bitch with. and there was no one else to do that with. So that has been grief for me, just missing my mom every now and then, wishing she was here, but knowing that she still is here. And how grief is evolving for me is that nowadays it doesn't choke me, or I don't feel like I can't breathe. Nowadays I just feel the presence of the knowledge of the fact that she was but now isn't.
Actually, that story reminded me of something that I battle with even to date, which is speaking about my mom in the past tense. I almost always have to catch myself and say my late mom, and it's just really hectic because every time you use the past tense, it's like you're acknowledging that she's not there, and it's very painful. Even something as small as the words that you use. I was speaking to my sisters the other day, and one of my sisters actually mentioned that she went for grief therapy, and she says it really, really did help her. I'm in general therapy, and I have been for quite a long time, and it helps with various issues. But I think she is possibly the first person who has ever told me they specifically went for grief therapy and that the results were really good. And the second person is one of you who sent your story and said just speaking out about it, both in therapy and on Legally Clueless, is something very therapeutic.
I lost my mom 13 years ago to cardiac. And over a decade later, I'm just still struggling with forming, maintaining, and keeping relationships. When I lost her, I was this young girl in the village. One moment I'm having a happy childhood, and then the next, my mom just died, and then things just changed, and ever since it's been a struggle. And just a few years back, I realized that we didn't go to any therapy, so we didn't get to grieve. I was just starting high school. I didn't get time to grieve, and I think losing her really affected me in ways that I couldn't understand back then. And so I just found out that I'm having difficulties keeping friendship, maintaining friendship, and no one tells you, no one really cares. When your mom passes on when you're young, back in the day, people just move on like nothing happened. But as a person, you're struggling, and then years later you just find out that you have issues, man. You have issues, and nobody else understands why. It's just you, and at least now I know where my problem is, and I'm working towards that, and hopefully things will get better by speaking up about it. So thank you for allowing me to do that. I just needed to voice that one out.
As I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, this is the raw and genuine face of grief. And everybody battles differently. We have similar emotions, but people's coping mechanisms are very different. So some people might find grief therapy works for them. Some people might find writing working for them. But at the very core of it, this is just how heartbreaking dealing with grief is.
I feel like every single year that passes, it becomes harder. I really try. When my dad passed away, I tried, I remember one time I was sitting on the couch and I texted two of my friends, and it was such a long text of grief and sadness, and no one responded. None of them responded, and it made me feel so bad. I felt like maybe I'm the one who doesn't know how to deal with this, or maybe so many people have lost their loved ones. Or am I the one who feels like I am entitled to someone just telling me everything will be fine? 1 day, 2 days passed, and none of them responded. None of them called me, and I just realized, you know what, Anita, just handle this thing as a strong woman and move on with your life. And at that time I was in university, I was doing my degree then. It was hell. I went back to school, I remember, and I just started drinking. I used to drink so much. I used to do anything, whatever is there, I do it. I never used to look at any repercussions. I never used to care, and I thought that is how I would get over losing my dad, but it got worse. So I used to drink, get drunk, and then the next day I'm sober and I crash. And it was a cycle, and I never used to go home because I used to live in the hostels. I stopped going home because I didn't want to go home and find my dad. And not find my dad, I mean. So I never used to go home. 3 months I didn't I didn't see my mom. I didn't go to my mom's house. I didn't visit her, nothing. And I remember this time I texted my mom to send me pocket money, and she told me, I'm not gonna send you pocket money until I see you home. And finally I got the courage to just go home. The first thing I did is I went into my parents' room to check my dad's clothes and stuff, and I didn't find them. And I remember how angry I was at my mom. I could not understand why. Why are you getting out? Why are you... Where are my dad's clothes? Where have they gone to? And my mom was like, I gave them out. What are we doing with these clothes? They don't make sense being here. They'll forever remind us of dad, and we will never move on. And I went to my room and burst into tears because I could not believe that this is happening, that my dad is no longer there. I will never go home and find my dad. The feeling of losing a loved one is excruciating. It's something that you cannot explain. I remember before, when someone lost the parent, you just tell them, I'm really sorry, may his soul rest in peace, everything will be fine. You hug them, and the next time you see them and they're smiling, you think everything is fine, but nothing is okay right now. Ever since my dad passed away, I've never been okay. My mom keeps on telling me to go see a counselor, and I try and gather myself and tell myself, you know what, I'm gonna go to a counselor. I've booked a session but never attended. I really try. The only way that I get through it, whenever I feel like this is crushing me, is I also love writing, just like you, and I take my book and I write. The other day I wrote 6 freaking pages on end, and I had to force myself to put a full stop. It was all about my dad, and I was just trying to tell him how it's like writing, and I usually feel like I'm talking to him whenever I write.
I remember when this particular story came through, I was like, oh my God, somebody else finds writing therapeutic, because I just recently got back to writing. A few years after my mom died, I had stopped completely. I think I just wasn't myself, I don't know. And then I got back to writing letters to her, just kind of conversations that I wish I could have with her face to face, and just getting it out. And I find it very therapeutic. Sometimes I cry my eyes out when I'm writing those letters, but afterwards I feel a little lighter, and it really helps. And then therapy helps, really pinpoint the ripple effects of the issues that I'm having and which ones stem from losing my mom. I think all of the stories that came through, obviously I couldn't share each and every one of them. I'm so thankful to each one of you who shared your stories, and it just feels so much safer to know that you're not alone, you're not crazy, you're not overly emotional, and it's very normal what you're going through, because sometimes you beat yourself down about it. You're like, I'm being weak. And so hearing the stories, you're like, okay, we're in this together. I'm going through a very human reaction, and that really helps. It really does. To those of you who are interested in grief therapy. I know right here in Nairobi, you can go to Amani and Amani Counseling Center. They're off of Mbagathi Way. And there's another platform which is they do therapy over the phone. So if you look for Niskize, and they're currently on Instagram, so just search Niskize and all their details are there, and they do therapy over the phone if you're interested in that. Once again, thank you so much for sharing your stories. I'm so glad that this podcast can be a safe space for us to feel like it's absolutely okay for you and I to be human and to be open about our human experiences. And that's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.